Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure that we welcome you to the third day of our Global Dialogues for Shared Future, COP30 Connection Series. This initiative brings together international experts to discuss how science, technology, and knowledge-based strategies can accelerate climate adaptation, enhance urban resilience, and support communities facing increasing climate risks. Today's sessions highlights two distinguished scholars whose work bridges cutting-edge scientific knowledge, digital transformation, and applied environmental management. Essential pillars align with COP30 that calls to move from declaration to measurable action. Thank you all for joining us in this important dialogue. Now, it's my honor to introduce Professor Eliud Flores, one of the leading voices in digital transformation and knowledge management in Americas. He is a tenured full professor at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, and the founder of NCO Digital Code. With more than 35 years in academia and 30 years in industry, Professor Flores has advised universities, enterprise, and public agencies and serves on boards of the World Capital Institute, Europe, and the Puerto Rico IT cluster. Professor Flores, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rafael. Let me see if I can, where do I click? There we go. So this is how we get to the slides, and let me see how I move them forward. There, I got it. Okay. So wait, let me go back. All right. Hello, everyone. Let's talk about artificial intelligence as a catalyst for climate action, focusing on how AI is helping island nations and developing countries in the Americas tackle climate change. Let's begin with the climate crisis in the Americas. Across our region, we are seeing stronger hurricanes, floods, droughts, and rising seas. After Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico in 2017, my family and I spent 2.5 months without power, and thousands in Puerto Rico spent up to a full year without electricity. Small island developing states or SIDS are especially at risk. For some, a single disaster can set back development for years, with damages sometimes exceeding half their GDP. These countries often have limited resources and climate data, which makes it harder to prepare and respond. After rebuilding from one disaster, there's little left to invest in future-proofing infrastructure. This double jeopardy of high vulnerability and low resources means innovation is crucial. The question is, how can we use new tools to do more with less? Artificial intelligence is emerging as a powerful answer, helping us analyze data, optimize systems, and guide decisions in ways that weren't possible before. So, how does AI help with climate change? Okay. There are two main roles, mitigation and adaptation. On the mitigation side, AI acts as a super efficiency tool. In energy, it forecasts electricity demands and controls the grid in real time, making it easier to integrate renewables and reduce emissions. In transportation, AI analyzes traffic patterns and optimizes routes, cutting fuel use and pollution. In industry, AI spots inefficiencies and emissions hotspots, helping companies save energy and money. For example, Google used AI in its data centers to reduce cooling and achieve a 30% reduction in cooling energy consumption. On the adaptation side, AI excels at making sense of complex data. It powers early warning systems for floods and hurricanes. AI can take in weather models, sensor data, historical patterns, and give earlier or more precise warnings for disasters, giving an extra day of lead time for a flood. For example, Google's AI-based system now provides flood forecasts up to 7 days in advance in many countries, where it used to provide only 2 days. Those extra days can save lives. Similarly, AI is being used to predict hurricanes, rapid intensification, or to pinpoint which areas will get hit hardest by an incoming storm. It helps city planners identify vulnerable infrastructure and guides land use decisions. AI also monitors environmental changes like deforestation or reefs health, turning raw data into actionable insights. In short, AI exceeds our foresight and fine tunes our ability to act, supporting better decisions and faster response. Let's look at two success stories that show AI's impact. First, Barbados. This small Caribbean island developed an AI-powered digital twin called the Hypervisor, which simulates storms and floods to reveal vulnerabilities in infrastructure. For example, it identified that the island's main hospital was in a floodplain, prompting action to protect critical services. Barbados also launched the DigiFish initiative, providing tablets to fish folk to digitize data on invasive seaweed and fish catches. By combining local knowledge with AI and satellite images, Barbados can now predict seaweed invasions and manage resources more effectively. As Minister Chantal Munro-Knight said, without technology and data, we don't have a chance of sustainability. Barbados is now a regional model for climate smart planning. Second, in Colombia, we have an impressive project in the Amazon rainforest, very close and dear to you in Brazil. The Amazon is so vast that traditional monitoring, like occasional flyovers or yearly satellite analysis, wasn't cutting it against rapid illegal deforestation. So Colombian researchers partnered with Microsoft's AI for Good Lab to supercharge monitoring. They used daily satellite imagery from Planet Labs, which gives fresh pictures of the forest every single day. That's a gigantic volume of data, thousands of images, but they trained AI models to compare each day's images with the previous days and detect changes like new clearings or road expansions. Now, instead of finding out 3 months later that a huge chunk of forest was cut, authorities get alerts within a day or two of trees coming down. This is a game changer for enforcement. Rangers or police can be dispatched to intervene or catch perpetrators in the act rather than just surveying damage after the fact. They didn't stop at satellite images. The project also deployed bioacoustic sensors. These are solar powered devices on trees that continuously record the sounds of the forest. AI algorithms recognize the buzz of chainsaws or trucks, alerting rangers to illegal logging. The project also developed an Amazon-specific species recognition model, making wildlife identification 10 times faster. These AI tools are now used by Colombia's environmental agency for official deforestation reports, enabling rapid response and better protection of biodiversity. Most importantly, many of these tools are open source, so other countries can adapt them for their own needs. Together, these stories show that AI can be tailored to local challenges and drive real impact. AI for climate action is a team effort. The United Nations, OAS, CARICOM, ACTO, And universities across the region are supporting digital solutions through funding, training, and collaboration. For example, the UNFCCC's Technology Executive Committee published a major paper on AI for climate in developing countries, guiding governments on opportunities and risks. The new Artificial Intelligence Climate Institute, launched right now at COP30, aims to train talent in developing countries to build and use AI for climate solutions. Regional organizations like CARICOM and ACTO foster cooperation, sharing breakthroughs and building capacity. NGOs such as Climate Change AI connect researchers and practitioners, helping to spread innovation and best practices. These partnerships ensure that countries don't have to go at it alone, and that success stories can be replicated against the region. While AI offers enormous promise, we must be clear-eyed about the challenges. Many vulnerable countries have sparse climate data, which can reduce the accuracy of AI models. There's also a shortage of digital infrastructure and skilled AI experts. If not designed inclusively, AI systems can perpetuate biases and neglect marginalized groups. Training large AI models consumes significant energy and water. So we must be mindful of AI's own carbon footprint. Finally, AI tools could be misused, so strong governance frameworks must be enacted. To address these risks, countries should invest in local observation networks and open data sharing, close the digital divide, implement ethical AI guidelines, use energy efficient algorithms, and establish robust governance. By effectively managing these challenges, we can ensure that AI's promise isn't derailed by unintended consequences. Here are my key recommendations for governments and partners. First, invest in digital foundations. Treat digital infrastructure and human capacity as climate resilience assets. Expand broadband, climate data networks, and computing resources, and launch AI training programs to empower local experts. Second, enhance data and knowledge sharing. Prioritize climate data collection and adopt open data policies. Creating shared regional repositories so AI models have richer datasets. Third, implement ethical AI governance. Integrate AI ethic guidelines into climate projects from the start, require transparency and fairness checks, and include vulnerable groups in sharing and in planning. Fourth, leverage global support and partnerships. Tap into international funding for tech-enabled climate action and forge partnerships that ensure knowledge transfer. South-South cooperation is powerful. Small states sharing AI solutions that work for them. Fifth, promote green AI and resilience co-benefits. Include measures to monitor and reduce the carbon footprint of AI in national strategies and incentivize the use of renewables in tech infrastructure. Finally, act now, learn, and iterate. Start with pilot projects, digitize existing climate workflows, and use sandboxes to safely experiment with AI. Collect lessons from each project and refine strategies as new tools and best practices emerge. To conclude, artificial intelligence is a catalyst for climate action. It amplifies our ability to act, providing better information, efficiency, and innovation. But it's not a silver bullet. AI must complement strong climate policies and community action. Success stories from Barbados and Colombia show that even small nations can punch above their weight with smart use of AI, fostering hope that new tools can help solve unsolvable problems. Collaboration is key. Governments, academia, the private sector, and communities must work together to ensure no one is left behind. My call to action is this. Policymakers should integrate digital solutions into climate plans now, allocate funds, and mandate pilot projects. The tech industry and researchers should focus efforts on climate challenges, collaborate with local institutions, and design for low resource settings. International partners should channel more support toward digital climate projects and insist on capacity building. Communities and educators should embrace and shape AI tools, help collect local data, and keep leaders accountable. Climate change is the challenge of our lifetime. AI won't solve it alone, but it can help us solve it smarter. By uniting human commitment with AI capabilities, we can transform climate action from reactive to proactive, from incremental to exponential. The time to accelerate is now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Heliot. It was very insightful your presentation. And unfortunately, we are having some problems with Professor Vania. We would like to inform that Professor Vania is currently without electricity at her home.
Oh,
So, yes. So, which is preventing her from joining us as planned. We appreciate your understanding and we will proceed now with Professor Ginter, that is with us. To complement our dialogues, we now welcome Professor Ginter Cook, who contributed already with a powerful reflection on forced climate migrations and human capital strategies. Today, he offers a brief final commentary connecting the discussions of our days 2 and 3, highlighting how knowledge system innovation and governance transformations converge to support our climate resilience. So thank you, Professor Ginter. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rafael. First of all, I also want to make a little reference to my predecessor, Eliud, who gave a very excellent presentation on the benefits of artificial intelligence. Eliud, since we know each other very well, and since I followed also your travel to Dubai, where you gave a very interesting presentation over the last days and had a visit to Dubai and meeting our Dubai friends who are partners in some way to the World Capital Institute, where we hope to have future common events. I also should mention Dubai for the reason that Dubai was the last place, one of the last places before Belém in Brazil, where the current COP30 was held and was just finalized yesterday. Rafael, I'm happy that I can be with you and Eliud. I also need to say that to you, Rafael in specific, that you have put out an excellent program, and it's a pity that today we have the problem that not all of the speakers can be with us, but I must really say that you put a lot of effort in this program, and I congratulate you for the achievement to have this excellent session been organized. And also, I must say, I followed a few of the presentations and must say that I learned a lot of new things, which always means that this is the best indication of the quality of a conference. Now, since you asked me to come up with some kind of wrapping up of this series. Let me start first with a reference on an analysis which you sent to us this morning. So there was very little time to prepare, but I'm grateful that you put together the key points of the this year's COP30 conference. It's not so easy. I have seen that the main document, which has been signed yesterday, has many pages. It was not possible for any of us to read it completely. But your summary, Raphael, gives a very good overview what has been achieved. And I think the key point in that whole discussion was that in the beginning of the conference, I think Brazil said put humans in the center of all these discussions. And I think that the paradigmatic change between the before and the COP now, meaning the COP30, is really that in earlier times, everything, meaning all the discussions were focused on environmental and technological and issues, meaning more or less it was discussed about the manageability of the climate change. And this time, and I think it's the first time, and this was a kind of a large expectation also towards Brazil, the focus of the COP30 has been shifted to new aspects. And the key aspect which I would like to refer to is a kind of a conceptual breakthrough that that COP30 was talking about the situation that climate change has an unequal impact on people. Sorry, let me just take a and addressing inequality must be central to the global climate action. So that's an interesting shift because it's no more technology and let's say techniques to fight the climate change have been not put aside. We are still concentrating on mitigation and adaptation, as Elliot just pointed out, of the situation. But it's the first time that the community, think about how the life of people can be improved and how people rights, for example, human rights, must play a much more important role with respect to the future of the COPs and the future of mankind. And I think that it has also been addressed that we are in a crisis of what has been called the human development. How do our societies move towards? And this is a big question. Now, I see it in the very dense presentation of the results of the COP30 that the major strategies which have been developed there, first, as I mentioned already, social protection as a foundation for resilience, as a foundation for a society to survive. And that means putting people in the center, in the core of all the discussions, means that climate responses have to always to look forward how much social protection is associated with it. Then an interesting move also is to find solutions which are not in the big solution, so to speak. In specific, on the food production side, it has been explicitly stated that food production has to come back to the sort of food production by family farmers, by indigenous people, by fish folk and rural workers. So the control, so to speak, on farming should be taken back to where it originally existed. And I personally believe that this has also to do something with the sustainability on a human scale, because in municipalities, in local situations, it's much better to balance out the situation between need for food and production of food. We can see this very explicitly, for example, in India, where over the decades the uh, the big food production companies were not very successful. I'm not mentioning names, but there are some gigantic companies who really dominate the food production in the world, and I see that here kind of a change in the strategy has been recommended by COP30, and I think this is a very important step. Now, it's also that the so-called sensitive ecosystems, in specific the Amazon, and a good reason to have the conference had in Belém was really to raise the attention that we have on our globe some regions like forest regions, the Amazon forest regions, which are really contributing to the survival of the planet. And also there, as I said before, for this food production and the new style of farming, we also need to know that the emphasis is on inclusive and diversified bioeconomy, that agroforestry models have to be implemented. So all these things have an impetus that it has to be done on a local scale, and not no more as was in the past in the discussion that we had that great ideas how to save the globe from a very large perspective. I think the new idea of the COP30 is really to address people in their local situation, and this is new. Now, of course, all these many things cannot be done without means for implementation. Means for implementation in the first instance means, of course, that there must be some financing in order, because in the end, it's restructuring things like, as has been said, not only food production and forestry, it goes also further to energy production. We have to see that continents like Africa, for example, have a big need for electricity supply and can only provide this change in their infrastructures if new types of energy production facilities are existing. Now, let me make a side remark, dear Eliud, on your presentation, on the positive presentation on AI. You and the experts in the community on AI may have heard what the former chairman of Google, Eric Schmidt, has recently in a hearing of the American Congress stated. And these are two things which are really to be considered when we introduce AI. First, the future of AI needs so much energy that it's paradox that we on the one side need AI, but on the other side we cannot afford to run AI systems, in specific the hardware, with the energy supply we have available by today. And second, and this is as well important, the consummation of natural resources, in specific water, which is needed for cooling, for example, AI computer centers, sorry, is so huge that we are running into a conflict if we are, on the one side, we need AI for finding better solutions. On the other side, the physical consequences of further developing AI is really dramatic. Now, what I want to say by this, we have to find much more intelligent solutions, and money alone and constructing of new energy, power supply, etc., will not only do it. Now, of course, COP30 made a lot of suggestions, and I think what I learned from the results or from the way results were presented, is that it's only possible to make a change happen if certain indicators can be measured. And there has been put up a list of 7 measurable indicators. And the interesting point in this respect is whatever is being developed, whatever is being decided, it must be accountable. And this is also a new idea. In the past, I think there were nice words being presented at the end of these conferences, but it's the first time, as much as I can see, that the results shall be measured and that those in charge must be accountable for achieving these type of results. Now, to sum it up again, the big achievement, I think, of COP30 is that human-centered climate action has been suggested to become a COP framework. So the point is human-centered. Put people in the center, and their social protection as being the key issue for a climate policy. And the financing issue, which I mentioned before, meaning there has been set numbers or presented numbers that, for example, $300 billion shall be made available per year until 2035. I think this money has in specific flow into the most vulnerable groups in the most vulnerable regions of this planet. And I think what is still lacking is a clear strategy how this big amount of money, assumed it's made available, can be conducted, can be guided in the right directions. In specific, not only to safeguard regions against climate catastrophes, but rather also people living in these regions. Well, an interesting aspect also is that if you are talking about social issues in future as a future strategy, we also must consider what does this mean by criteria. And I think one of the most important criteria is that human rights have been safeguarded, and human rights, as might be the access to food, social security, poverty reduction, and social equality, are now becoming a key issue in the future discussion of saving our planet in respect to the climate change. It's an interesting move which has been discussed in Belém, and I think for us at the World Capital Institute, being a think tank following since years what needs to be done in this respect, it's a challenge, and on the one side it's a support for us, because we always have thought that it's not just only a technical problem or an environmental technology problem to save our planet, rather than also it's a matter of mindset, it's a matter of politics, and coming to the point which Raphael made, it's a matter of governance. Now, when we talk about governance, the point is, of course, which political systems guarantee that we can come to strategies which preserves human rights thoughts, social integrity, and all these type of things. And I think there is one, now coming to a more dystopic part in my wrap up. A recent analysis, I think it was from the United States, tells us that the number of states, the number of living situations where democracy is the governing form of politics, again has been reduced over the last year. And this is frightening, because democracy is one of the preconditions that all what I have said before can really be implemented. Now, we all observe what happens in the world. We are talking about places, in specific the large and powerful countries like the United States, Russia, and China, where we can observe that these are no more countries where democracy in its pure form is being maintained rather than threatened. And I think there is an urgent need now today, and I think World Capital Institute were really challenged to think about it, how this, let's say, this solidaric form of governance, mainly I'm talking about democracy, can be maintained for the next decades, because if it's not going this way, we have to observe what happens in the United States, that the climate problematic is denied. Now, let me try to finalize my contribution at this point. As you may have discovered, it's not a well prepared presentation, rather than on the demand of Raphael to present some of the thoughts. The first part was about COP30. Next, I would like to repeat a bit what has been presented by the members of WCI and the other contributors to this series, which have been perfectly prepared by Raphael. And from our part, the World Capital Institute, I think a most fascinating and the most enlightening introduction has been presented by Javier Carrillo. He was really giving a very broad insight on what is needed. And as we all know, Javier Carrillo is a supporter of the idea of degrowth. At the World Capital Institute, we know that degrowth is not a perfect description. It's likely it looks like it's getting people to reduce their consumption, etc. I think the idea behind it is that we have to find new forms of growth. It's not degrowth as such. Rather than we have to look for new forms of growth, and this is a challenge which also reaches to the let's say to the scientific models which we have to think of. And one of those scientific models we have to rethink is certainly economy. And there has been a statement between economists, left-wing economists, the first 10, that it's easier to predict the end of the world than to predict the end of capitalism. So, meaning the general insight we believe to have is that capitalism is written in stone and we cannot change it. I think the future challenges really need to rethink how an economy of the future can be designed. And in our club, in the World Capital Institute, we have a series of good brains, excellent brains, who are part of this discussion. And we also have friends outside of our organization who are really thinking in a very deep way on how we can change economy. Now, in a more abstract sense, Javier has talked about that we need a new civilizational vision of society, meaning this is a great idea. But as we can see, the limitations in this respect is that I personally believe, and I think I'm in a good society, that the intellectual potential which we have available on the level of governance and of the level of our political leaders is not sufficient in order to achieve such kind of an idealistic goal. Now, the other speakers from our society have made a lot of very good remarks. For example, Eliud just gave a very excellent presentation where he, to give just one example, made reference to the digital twin. And this gives me this is another keyword which I think is important. We need to see that many of the problems which we can solve with intellectual power needs to have a fact and data basis on the top of which we can argue how the future shall be reconstructed. And this means that we have also to think about new methods of scientific work. Maybe they are not new, but I think the challenges which have been put forward by COP30, the challenges which have been presented to the World Capital Institute are really of a nature of complexity that we need to have a higher level, maybe a meta level of understanding how these things fit together. In preparing, meaning whilst Eliot was talking, it came to my mind because he was talking about the environmental effect which are caused by one issue in consequence to some other issue. And the famous example I remember as a fan of Alexander of Humboldt, that, for example, when he was in Ecuador, this was 100 and let me think about more than 220 years ago, he discovered in a study that the deforestation of a place had a strong influence on the water supply and on agriculture in that environment. So the insights have been gained already hundreds of years ago, but the quantitative analysis has not been made. So the good situation we are in today is that, for example, by constructing digital twins, these are pictures mapped from the origin, meaning from nature, to a data model, gives us the opportunity to have a better approach to understand these things. And better approach to me means that the perspective we have to open is more holistic, is more systematic. Today we would have expected a contribution on systems and systems views and integrative views on the problems we have in front of us. We have to accept that climate problems are the most complex problems mankind ever had to deal with. And in order to master complexity, we need to have a set of very modern and very, how should I say, more elicited methodologies. As I had said before, we have to see things more holistically. We have to take a systems approach. We have to use methods of foresighting and for thinking, for example, models by which we can see the problem which we have to face in a much larger context and in its inherent dependencies. Already Humboldt, who I mentioned before, has seen that everything is connected to everything, meaning this is a statement easy to make. This was revolutionary at his time, and it's maybe still revolutionary today. But the problem is, what does this mean in methodological terms? And what I want to state at this point in my wrap up, the World Capital Institute has the potential, either by its own members, but also by its relationships to scientific partners, to introduce this new form of these new methodologies. We offer ourselves to partners, as for example, addressed to Eliot, to Dubai, and others, to invest our think capital into finding new ways of understanding how the challenges which are brought forward through the COPs can be mastered in a new by finding new approaches. It has been said, I think by Einstein, the famous Nobel Prize winner and mathematicians, that problems cannot be solved with the same methods by which they have been produced. So what this means in essence is we have to find, we as a community of scientists, as a community of thinkers, have to accept and adapt and adopt new ways of methodological solution findings for the challenges the the COP conferences put on us. Now, having said all these many things, I would like to come to the end, meaning there's a lot of more what could be discussed. And I must repeat that I'm very much grateful for Raphael and his colleagues, Anna Farsinelli from the University of Caja do Sul, to have set up this conference series and to have opened the doors to many of the subjects which I have tried to discuss in my final conclusions of the series. And I would be happy if this is not the end, rather the beginning of a new way, of a new venture, which we all together would like to start with. In specific, and I must say this as one of the old battle horses of this whole business, that I would like very much to see young generations stepping into our community, helping us to because they have a much different education in terms of learning about new methodologies, meaning just think about, as examples, cryptocurrency, for example, which to us, the elder people, is very hard to understand. Or take, for example, in what I was involved in, quantum physics. And by the way, I should really end now with my presentation, that by these new disciplines and their new ways of modeling the world, which sometimes is not very well understood by us, the elder, I could imagine that the next generation who have an easy access to this new knowledge, we can find new ways of solving the problems which we are fighting since decades in order to get them right. In specific for the environmental improvements, I personally believe that the new scientific insights and scientific methodologies will help us to make at least the world a better place. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a long, a long wrap up, but I think I was emptying my heart in order to present many things which go through my brain. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Ginter. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, your insights and everything you've been talking with us in WCA and in private also. It's a pleasure to have you as one of our mentors for myself at least. So I'd like also now to, as long as we have time, to call Elliot also to have the insights about the Professor Ginter and about the COP and the event. If you want, Professor Elliot, please feel free to join
Sure.
us and
Actually, I want to
contribute
mention
with
that,
the discussion.
okay,
Also, I could also ask you, Professor, as you were talking about artificial intelligence and the COP, as Professor Ginter told, is something now that one of the things is that is focused on human being. So how do you see this thing that we have to have the technology and we have to have the people together in these efforts? And also talking about the investments. If AI to produce and to contribute with AI, we need investment and money. So this is not also maybe a problem to have more inequality with the access of AI. What your impression, Professor Elliot?
so I addressed several of those topics in my presentation, right? I mean, I think that
Yeah.
we need to make this people-centric, and it has to be people in a specific context. So the AI systems that are being developed, particularly for climate change, they need to be localized, and they need to have the input of people from the local communities. So that's why capacity building is critical in terms of getting people from all the different geographies involved in developing the AI systems. As Gunther mentioned, I just came back from Dubai, where I was presenting at the 10th Knowledge Summit of the NBRF Foundation. And there was actually within the conference, there was a UNDP sponsored roundtable on developing AI policy. And it was both in terms of how to help countries develop their own AI policies and how to make the rest of the world aware that other parts of the globe were not ready to embrace AI because of the digital divide. And it was a very deep conversation for about 2 hours in this. And as I mentioned before, one challenge we have is that AI is data fuel. And many of our developing countries, and even Puerto Rico, which is part of the US, but we are not a full state, so we don't have full investment. We don't have enough sensors or enough quality data collection to feed the systems. And therefore, the insights we can get from AI are kind of hollow because we don't have enough data to feed it. Just think of an old 19th century uh, steam powered train. If you don't put coal into it, very appropriate for climate change, right? If you don't put coal into it, it won't burn, it will move. So, in order for AI to move forward, we need to become much more committed to data production. And a lot of the systems that we have in our countries are semi-manual. That means that we use computers to basically create tables, but a lot of the tables need to be interpreted manually, or system A doesn't work with system B, and we don't have sharing. So therefore, the old axiom of one of the early knowledge management writers, Carla Odell, who said, if only we knew what we know, right? When our systems don't have access to all the knowledge and all the data that we actually have generated, it becomes dumb because it's out of context, it's out of data. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other point I want to make is that while I am aware that AI is very power intensive and that right now that is seen as a challenge, there's some positive development both in terms of making the AI algorithms more efficient so that they consume less energy. And also, most of the people making data centers for AI and computing are quite aware of the power demands that they're making. So either they are trying to become fully sustainable with renewable energy, or they are even building their own nuclear power stations so that they can power this. And even though we all get scared with nuclear because it has some inherent dangers, it is clean. If it doesn't explode, it is clean. So in that regard, particularly with the newer technologies for nuclear, they're much safer than the old technology of the 60s and 70s, right? So hopefully that will give us some hope. But altogether, I think that and to point to something that Gunter mentioned, and that is the danger of democracy fragility, right now. It seems that autocrats and people who want to endanger democracy, they do it not because of ideological goals anymore, it's out of greed. And this greed that they have wants them to become blind and to make society blind to the real and immediate dangers of climate change, to the real dangers of lack of access to healthcare, and how the systemic biological degradation of the world is provoking more antibiotic resistant germs and whatnot. So they don't want you to be aware of that because that would imply higher taxes to fuel more research to solve those problems. And they just want to keep more money to buy a bigger jet or a bigger mansion. So I am very concerned about that. And we see immediate situations like right now, the Trump administration willing to burn all these satellites that are up there just to monitor climate change. And he's going to burn them because he doesn't want to know. So I think that the world has to react to that because the cost of fixing the damages done by climate disasters are much larger investments than would be required for prevention, for adaptation, and for mitigation. So if we saw the light and saw that it's good business to invest in climate, then the powers that be would invest more in that as opposed to investing in deepfakes and in propaganda to hide the reality of climate change.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Professor Elliot, Professor Ginter. I think as long as we are almost in the end, as we conclude today's session, I would really like to express our sincere appreciation to all speakers and participants for their valuable contributions. Your insights have enriched our dialogue and strengthened the collective purpose behind this initiative. We also intend to continue hosting these events through the year, fostering ongoing exchange and collaboration. In addition, we plan to produce educational materials that will be made publicly available, ensuring that the knowledge generated here can benefit society more broadly. We would like also to thank University of Caxias do Sul, the World Capital Institute, and City Living Lab to promote this event. And thank you all for joining us. We look forward to your continued engagement in the next steps of this shared journey. Thank you very much, guys, Professor Ginter, Professor Elliot. If you have something to say, if not, we are closing this session and these 3 events that we had. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for sponsoring this event. I think it's very important that universities like yours, Caxias do Sul, is so involved in development of policy and capacity building. That's how we move forward. So thank you. And thank you, Gunter. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. As I said before, it was a great opportunity, and I'm so much grateful in the name of WCI, Raphael, that you and your colleagues have set up this conference, because it also creates a model case for WCI's future agenda and projects. It should not be a standalone, single shot event, rather than taking it as an example how we as a community could continue on that. A little remark in that respect, I would appreciate if we could get involved young generation people more. I know that, for example, in Dubai, we had one of our members, Hannes Matt, who was making a presentation. He is from a generation which I think we should be happy to have more of them. And one of the, let's say, the challenges and the projects we have to approach, maybe also with the help of the new outlet of WCI in Europe, as some of you may know, or many of you may know, we have created a association under the registration of Austria, which is called WCI Europe. And my expectation with your help would be that we attract more young generation people, also new thinkers, new ideas through this instrument. Thank you very much for everything you have done.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, João, also for your technical support here with us. Thank you. And bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Take care.